My style is my style. The way I sound is the way I sound. It is what it is.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Get Ish Done podcast. I am here joined by Mr. Lesley Toche. Lesley is a good friend of mine, ex-LinkedIn alum, and is the founder and CEO of Nextplay Events. He's also an amazing storyteller, so I'm super excited for this episode. Lesley, I'll kick it over to you. If you can give the listeners a brief overview, who is Lesley and what is it that you do?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. Super excited about this episode. Yeah, I'm the founder and CEO of Nextplay Events. We host networking events that are centered around culture. So what we do is we connect people of color. We create opportunities in tech through these events. So Nextplay is a community of over 6,000 Black and Latinx professionals in the tech industry. About 1,200 are Black and Latinx engineers. And so what we do is we host these networking events to build community. If you're an engineer, for example, and you're a senior engineer, you show up, you could potentially see, or you will see 100 other Black and brown senior engineers, which is, there aren't a lot of spaces where that can happen. So we host community building events. Companies sponsor them. So large companies like Snapchat, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. Those companies will have a presence, their employees will be there, and there's conversations that happen, and people end up discovering career opportunities, or they just make new connections that can become friends, mentors, etc.
Dope. We'll get into all of the details towards the meat of the podcast, but just wanted to quickly ask, why start this company? It's such a very specific cause, so I was kind of wondering, why?
Yeah, so I started this company for a couple of reasons, and there's a whole story. If you want to get into all that now,
we'll jump into that in a bit, but a brief overview.
Just a brief overview of why Nextplay. Yeah, so the short story is I worked at LinkedIn. And I did recruiting for a couple of years, and I was a diversity program manager. And a part of my job was organizing networking events to attract Black and brown talent to LinkedIn. And I noticed that there was a big opportunity to not do what every other company does. So every company hosts networking events that they have long panel discussions where they tell people they care about diversity. Yeah. And care about inclusion, belonging. And so I started thinking about, how do we not tell people? How do we create an environment where people can experience that? Sure. Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to tell you that we care about inclusion and belonging. We'll create an environment where you could experience that. Yeah. And we're not going to tell you we have diverse employees. When you show up to the event, we'll bring our employees who are diverse, and you can see that. And also, we wanted to create an environment where you could be authentic. A lot of these events are usually very buttoned up, and it's tough for people to feel at home, feel comfortable. They can't really be themselves. So I started thinking about, how do we create an environment where people could feel comfortable being authentic. And lastly, there's an opportunity to make these events more fun. Yeah. Why is it that it's either a professional event or it's a cultural event? How do we merge the two? Yeah. And, I have a background in entertainment, used to be in a band. So I started thinking about how to merge my passion for connecting people with economic opportunity with my passion for entertainment. And that's kind of where the idea came from, to connect people with career opportunities through cultural events.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I would love to learn more. I mean, I know your full story, but for all the listeners out there, learn more about what was growing up like where did you grow up, family and hobbies, etc.
Born and raised in Cameroon. It's a small country. We're neighbors with Nigeria, West Africa. I was there for 11 years. Moved over to the U.S., to San Jose in California specifically when I was 11. And went to school at Berkeley here in the East Bay. And when I graduated Berkeley, I got a message from a recruiter at LinkedIn about a recruiting job for LinkedIn. So I responded to that, ended up interviewing, and I got the job. And that's kind of how I ended up at LinkedIn.
What was, you said you were in Cameroon for how long?
11 years.
11 years?
First 11 years of my life, I was in Cameroon.
What was growing up there like? And it's kind of, you were there for 11 years, you come here, and then you kind of finish your adulthood or growing into it like a man. What was that kind of transitioning?
Yeah, so Cameroon was great. I mean, I really loved it. Yeah. And it's one of those places where there's just a lot of life. There's a strong sense of community everywhere. Kids play with other kids outside of the house. And Cameroon was great. But my parents decided to move here for economic opportunities. Yeah. The same reason why every immigrant moves here. And when I first came here, I moved to San Jose, which is pretty suburban,
Yeah.
and I didn't like it, actually. I wasn't a fan because I got here and we were obviously in a nicer house, but there's like no one outside. There's no kids to play with. And we got here in the summer. It was really hot. Cameroon's hot too, but it was really hot here. And then winter, I'd never experienced cold like that. Like Cameroon's tropical, so it doesn't really get that cold. And it was kind of depressing when I first got here.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back home. I kept calling my family members, aunties, uncles. I would call, speak to my friends back home. It was just, and I didn't see a lot of kids who looked like me here. Mm-hmm. I came from an environment where everyone looked like me to an environment where hardly anyone
didn't feel like you belong at all.
Yeah.
And aside from school and like transitioning to San Jose, what else were you like involved with? Any sports, or I know you were in a band too.
Yeah. So it's a good question. So growing up in Cameroon, I played soccer. Basically, everyone plays soccer in Cameroon. Like, it's a big deal. Yeah. So I played soccer, came here, played soccer, and that's when I started making friends. But
what position did you play, by the way?
I was a forward.
Forward. I played goalie.
You play forward?
I play goalie.
Oh, goalie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, goalie was fun. In Cameroon, I used to play goalie. I was pretty good too. I mean, the competition level outside of the U.S. in general, it's a lot higher than the U.S. So I came here, I was 11, I was playing with like 13, 14-year-olds because 11-year-olds were pretty much a joke. Coming from Cameroon, it was just not that challenging. And it was fun, but I was looking for a space where I could like have fun with kids who look like me and come from a similar background. And I didn't find that. I was looking for that sense of community. That was the first time that I really felt that way. That's where it all started, really. Yeah. And so I switched from soccer to basketball. And when I switched to basketball, it was like I was with my peoples. Yeah. And that was great. And so I did that for a while. And after a while, I just saw, all of my friends, they kept growing. They're like crazy tall. And after a while, the NBA dream was no longer let's put it that way. And so I got into music. I started doing music production. I would make beats. And then I became a keyboardist. Ended up joining a band, funk rock hip hop. The band is called Poker Face Protest. The music is out there on YouTube. And at the time, I went all in with music. So I stopped playing basketball after high school. Mm-hmm. Basketball in high school was actually pretty fun. I went to Oak Grove High School in San Jose. We were the best team in Oak Grove history. Went to NorCal Championship, one game away from state in California. It's a big deal. And stopped doing that. We did the band thing. And that was great, actually. The band was a good time. We ended up recording a 4-song EP with a guy named Jason Villaroma. He's won 2 Grammys. He's recorded people like John Legend, got a Grammy for that. Black Eyed Peas got another Grammy for that. Took us to the studio. We did 4 songs. And, at the time, the plan was to become a rock star. Like, I just had this vision of me being on stage at Coachella, all these big conferences. I was a keyboardist in the band, and I also, produced a lot of the music for the band.
How old were you around this time when you started the band?
We started a band my junior year, so I was 17.
17? Oh, high school.
High school, yeah. We did a talent show, and people liked it, and they just we should see where this goes. So we did that. It was an interesting blend of different genres, funk, rock, and hip hop. It was a 7-piece band, huge, and so it's kind of like Gym Class Heroes. Yeah. So we did that for a while, and then the band we started developing a following. People liked the music. We started doing shows, and once business kicked in, where we have to start talking about we're getting paid for these shows, what are the splits, all that stuff. Yeah, that started creating a lot of issues. We were just too young, not mature enough. So the band, I threw in the towel. And
but you guys went on tour, right? Or you started doing live shows?
We started doing a lot of live shows here in the Bay Area. We were getting ready to go on a national tour, but we never got that far. So at the time, I was very committed. I mean, I think one day I got on my keyboard at around noon. The next time I looked at the time, it was midnight. I was on it for 12 hours straight. That's how committed I was. That's just the kind of person I am. When I'm committed to anything, I go all in. I'm 100%, 1,000%. And I didn't feel the same level of commitment from everyone in that band. So my future was in the hands of 6 other guys.
Not to deter you, but I've done a couple of my 5th guest or 4th guest that I have on this podcast, and as well as all the different podcast episodes that I've listened to, including dramas, short story long, he interviews a ton of people. There's this recurring theme of people that when they get a taste of something that they really like, they just 110% focus on that one thing.
Absolutely.
Until they get really, really good. Mm-hmm. And I feel like generally people would think that, if I got to get good at something, I have to focus. But what I'm learning is that you, Bomani, Taylor, Carlos, all these people, to get focus at a different degree, a different level. Like it's like 110% of your focus is just on that until you get really good. So like I find it super interesting, like how you want to become a rock star, and I truly believe you could have done it.
Yeah.
If you kept doing it, you probably would have done it. And it's just, I wanted to point that out really quick because I noticed it. What was one of your? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I just saw a Gary Vee video on Instagram. I think it was yesterday. It was something along the lines of like, whoever works the hardest is gonna win. Basically, there's a lot of people out there who are talented, but you gotta have the work ethic. Yeah. So Will Smith talks about it. Gary Vee talks about it. So that work ethic, that drive, really makes a huge difference. I definitely believe in that.
And one thing that I just learned, I just got done recording a podcast episode with Bomani, was when you combine that work ethic with time management, like proper time management, then that's like the golden nugget, because
game changer.
Then you have 110% of the focus with segmented times throughout the day.
Absolutely.
That you're 110% focused on just that task. So, and then that over time, over 5 years, next thing you know, you started a company, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually listened to the first episode. Amazing, by the way. Like, you and Taylor did a great job. And Taylor was talking about how much you could accomplish in a day. Yeah. You can accomplish a lot more than people think in a day. One thing I just started doing recently, which has been a game changer for me, sounds simple. I write down every task that I need to accomplish, and I actually put it on my calendar. Like, I schedule time for everything that I need to do. First of all, it'll let you see what's realistic, like what you can realistically accomplish. And second, it helps you focus. Yeah. You got to prioritize. Make sure you carve out enough.
Phone down.
Yes.
Social media
exactly.
off. Yeah.
So I took it to the next level. Before I was doing it from Monday to Friday. Now I do the same thing for my weekends.
Weekends too. I
did it on Saturday, and that was the most productive Saturday I've ever had. Yeah. It was incredible how much I got done. Yeah. And so now I try to do it every day, actually.
Yeah. I started off doing that, like literally blocking off my Google Calendar. And I started because I was at LinkedIn working all day, getting hit up for like events and DJing and stuff, and I had to be able to focus on LinkedIn work. This is what I'm getting paid to do. But then after work, like after my 5 o'clock and going to the gym, then I had like that 5 hours of time until I went to sleep. So I was like, how can I use this 5 hours like the smartest way possible? And I found that literally blocking off your calendar, like 30 minutes, this is going to be my downtime before I go back into grind mode and plan this event, create this flyer, create this whatever you have to do, you know? And then after doing that for like a couple of months, I ended up just creating like a schedule. So like at this time is when I'm going to do this. At this time is when I'm going to do this. My body just kind of goes into like habit mode.
And you've been doing this for a while, like. Because you do a lot of different things. You have your 9 to 5 at LinkedIn, and then you're DJing, and then you have your company that you're running on the side. So I've been watching you do this for a while, and I actually tried it recently, and this for me has been a game changer.
It definitely works. Let's kind of like wrap up with the whole like rockstar and band thing. What was your favorite show that you ever did?
My favorite show.
Is there any that stand out in your mind? Where you're like, damn, that was so dope.
Yeah,
because the feeling that you get as a musician being on stage performing for a live audience is unlike anything else.
Yes. So that feeling of being on stage performing original music that you created and watching your fans sing along and watching them just vibe and just go crazy to your music is one of the best feelings I've ever had. I could think of 2 shows that were pretty epic. We did one at Santa Clara University. And they just had it was an event that had a bunch of different bands perform. We took our shows very seriously. Yeah. If you came to we were called PFP, Poker Fish Protest. If you came to PFP show, you'd be like, wow, he's like, what the hell is going on? Yeah. The music was good, but the energy, it was incredibly high energy. Yeah. Our lead singer at the time was Kwesi, who's now the creative director for Nextplay, actually. He's rapping, he was singing, he's just very talented. He would do backflips, front flips.
Hype the crowd up.
Yeah. He was engaging the crowd. Like, the crowd was part of the performance. They weren't just like... And so Santa Clara was crazy. Our guitarist ended up breaking the strings, and it, like, cut him. So it cut him. So he was bleeding, and he still kept rocking out, and people loved it. It was epic. While that's happening, Kwesi is doing, he did a front flip, grabbed a cowbell, and just started banging the cowbell, just going crazy on stage. That show was epic. We also did another festival at West Valley Community College called West Fest. West Fest is a pretty big festival here in the Bay Area. We did that, and it was a bunch of metal bands. We weren't a metal band, obviously. And then we got on there, and we went nuts. That show was pretty epic, too.
Did you take the band to you went to Berkeley, right? UC Berkeley?
I went to UC Berkeley, yeah.
Did you continue doing the band while you were at Berkeley?
No, so the band broke up before. So at the time, I was a student at West Valley Community College.
Mm-hmm.
And
let's talk about that too, transitioning from high school to how you got to Berkeley.
Yeah, high school. So I went to a very, very diverse high school. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, I thought San Jose was a very diverse city because of the demographics in my high school. Mm-hmm. And then I left and went to West Valley Community College. It was predominantly white and was not the most diverse environment at all. So that was an adjustment for me because I was living in hyper reality in San Jose. I was on the basketball team. I was around people of color, even on campus. That was just my reality. So when I got to West Valley and I rarely saw anyone who looked like me, I walk in class and sit in the back. I just had to learn how to interact with people who came from different backgrounds. We had Mercedes in the parking lot, BMWs. They came from a lot of wealth in community college. So that was an experience. My first year at West Valley is when the band broke up. And so at that point, I had to think about, all right, the band broke up. My initial plan was to, me and Kwesi, we were pretty much the core of the band. Mm-hmm. And so we were just going to create another band, find another group of musicians. And in the process, I don't know, I just got immersed in my studies. And again, I went all in, 1,000%. I was studying round the clock. Yeah. Fridays, I would be in the library till 10, 11. Then I'd come to my cousin's house, drink a beer. And then Saturday, I'm back in the library. I don't know, I just became obsessed with just learning. A new world opened up, and I was learning, taking courses, and I was hustling. I heard you and Taylor talk about side hustles. Yeah. Man, I had a ton of side hustles. So, let's hear about them, yeah. So when I was at West Valley, I was looking for a job, and I took this English class, and I had this English teacher. Her name was Tina. I'll never forget her name, Tina Golaw. For some reason, she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. She saw a lot of potential. I don't know why. I wasn't an amazing student in English. English was kind of tough, but maybe it was my interpretations of some of the readings, the ideas. I don't know. She saw something in me that I didn't see. So she offered me a job to be a tutor in the writing lab. She was like, hey, I think you'd be a great tutor. Do you want to do this? I'm like, damn. Why me kind of thing? Because I didn't think I was there. But her believing in me made me believe in myself. Yeah. And so I took the job as a writing tutor, and students would come in and I'd tutor them. And then there was a limited amount of time in the writing lab because there's a bunch of students that need help. Mm-hmm. Basically, we just taught them how to outline an essay, the structure of an essay. So we had a limited amount of time, and I noticed that it wasn't enough. People wanted more time. It was an opportunity. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could offer private tutoring lessons to these students. I probably was not supposed to do that, but I'm telling my story. So I was like, I wonder if I could do private tutoring lessons and charge for it and see if these students would pay. And so I asked one of the students that came in regularly, as a middle-aged woman. She's from China. Basically what she wanted was just an opportunity to practice her English. It was more than just learning how to write an essay. Mm-hmm. So she said yes. So I figured out a pricing structure, came up with a bundle. All right, I'll give you this many lessons for $500. She was like, sure. I couldn't believe she said that. And so I started doing it. I started tutoring on the side, so I started getting some money, tax-free, of course.
And you're also getting better at the craft of...
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
2 in 1.
So I started tutoring. While I was doing that, I started thinking about what other skills do I have that I can get paid for? I was a keyboardist. And so I started giving keyboard lessons, piano lessons. I had a neighbor who wanted to learn, and I gave him lessons. He was paying for it. And then on top of that, I had a job at the city council in San Jose. I was working for one of the council members. And so literally at one point, I had 4 to 5 jobs at the same time.
Side jobs, just working. And then studying, trying to make sure you do classes. Taking 3 or 4 classes?
I was taking at least 4 every semester. 4 to 5. No, I was hustling. And I was just grinding.
Not sleeping.
Yeah, and then I transferred to Cal. And then...
Was that transition period pretty easy, or how did that work?
No, it was not easy. Going from a community college to a big school like Berkeley.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Berkeley has 40,000 students. Yeah. And you're coming in as a transfer. It's tough for transfers because people at your age, a lot of them came in as freshmen.
So they have community friends.
They already have their network. They already have their friends. They're not really looking to make new friends. And so that transition is typically hard, but I got lucky because like my closest friends went to Berkeley and they came in as freshmen. So I just tapped into their circle. Yeah, I was plugged in. The other transfers I came in were like, how you like my people lived on my floor? Like, how did you do this kind of thing? So for me, that part wasn't hard, but academically it was very tough. Berkeley was intense. It's designed for people who are super, super passionate about those courses, and like that's what they want to spend the rest of their lives doing, like researching that. Like if you take an anthropology class, it's like designed for someone who wants to become an anthropologist. So you have to be really, really it's intense. Yeah.
What did you study?
I changed my major like 4 or 5 times. I came in as a rhetoric major, changed to anthropology at one point, changed to sociology, changed to music, and then I ended up with geography. Economic geography is what I graduated with. Because anthropology, all these other disciplines, I had questions that those departments couldn't answer. I had to go to other departments, so I just did an interdisciplinary.
Yeah, and aside from classes, what else were you like involved with at Berkeley?
Aside from classes, oh man, what else was I involved in? So my first semester, I got there and I think I had 4 classes, and the classes moved really quick. I mean, the homework assignments, the readings, they were expecting us to read like an entire book in a week. It was intense. And when I got there, I didn't read that. I mean, I thought I was fine. But when I got there and I saw how much reading we're expected to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, I was like, yeah, I gotta get better at this. So I actually took a class that teaches you how to read faster. And so I learned how to read and went from like 350 words a minute to like 800 words a minute. Hey, I went all in. Yeah, so like I had to. That was the only way I was gonna survive. So I did that. So my first semester, I was just getting acclimated academically, and these are some of the smartest people I had ever seen. Everyone who gets into Berkeley is a 4.0 student. You're not special. Yeah. So they make it incredibly competitive because of that. So I was just trying to figure out like, all right, how do I keep up? So no side hustle my first semester. And then I ended up discovering this opportunity to go abroad. It was free. There was like an exchange program where you can go to Norway and do a semester. School in Norway is tuition free. So I would save money, and they give you a stipend to go to Norway. So I got paid.
So you got paid to go.
I got paid. Yeah. And so my second semester, I was gone, actually. I wasn't on campus. Norway was a whole experience in itself. I had some side hustles over there, too, because I had to survive.
Yeah. Damn, that's cool. Do you feel like getting out of the country at, how old were you, like 22, 21?
It was 2012, 22.
Do you feel like that was a good, I mean, it's good to kind of like travel when you're young, but do you think it was a good experience for you in terms of like life scope or just like scope
Absolutely.
On the world?
Best decision I could have made at the time.
Yeah.
So the one thing I didn't mention, when I was in community college, I landed an internship at AT&T corporate. I was the only one from community college at that internship. Everyone came from big schools like Berkeley. And in that internship, my manager was pretty senior in the company, and her manager was one of the senior vice presidents. So I got a chance to talk to her manager. And I asked her, when you're in school, what's the one thing that you regret doing that if you can go back, you would change? And she said, the one thing I didn't do that I really regret to this day is studying abroad. I was like, done. I got to study abroad. I asked a lot of people, and everyone said the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, so I decided to study abroad. Like, I didn't want to have those regrets.
Yeah.
It was the best decision I could have made. I mean, anyone listening to this, if you're still in school, I would highly recommend studying abroad. It will probably be the best experience of your undergrad.
Yeah.
And so, going to Norway, and a lot of people ask me, why Norway?
Why Norway?
I mean, what I liked about Norway, I had this itch to get out of the country when I studied abroad. Like, I grew up in Cameroon, came here, I'd been in America for a while, and I felt like everything I studied in class was all very, like, U.S.-centric, but I know the world is huge.
Global view.
Yeah, so I wanted more of a global perspective, and I just wanted to learn more about the rest of the world. And so I wanted to go somewhere where no one looked like me. They didn't have the same culture. They didn't talk like me. Just something completely different. That was Norway.
Yeah.
And so I grew a lot because I just developed a whole new worldview. And Norway was interesting because that was the first time since I had been in the U.S. where I didn't experience my everyday life as a black person. When you live in the U.S., given our history, you experience life as a black person.
Yeah.
And if you try not to, you will be reminded. Norway was interesting because they don't have the same history that we have here in the U.S. Immigration is still a pretty recent thing in Norway. They've been pretty homogenous for a long time. And so they don't make certain assumptions that people would make here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the stereotypes we deal with here, I didn't feel that in Norway because they don't have the frame of reference. If I walk in a store, they're not going to follow me around the store. They're not going to assume that this guy might steal something or there was none of that really. So at some point, I just started experiencing life as just a human being and not as like a black person.
That's interesting that you bring that up because that's something I want to touch on later, but we can talk about it right now. Can you maybe share an experience or two of what it was like to be like a black man in America? Like I know you've mentioned it a couple of times when you spoke to some leadership while you were here at LinkedIn, and that was like a super powerful story that ended up like educating a lot of people who may not even have a clue. So if you can share a story, that would be pretty cool.
Of what it's like to be black in America?
Just give more context to it in terms of like I think you shared a story and it was more on the sense of when you were going to Berkeley, it had to do with people automatically assuming that you were on the basketball team and.
Yeah, definitely a couple stories around that. So when I transferred to Berkeley, and this happened on campus and off campus. When I interact with people and they ask me, so what do you do? I'm a student. Where? Berkeley. Oh, do you play a sport? Or like I got that question 100% of the time. There was this assumption that I got in on a sports scholarship. And so I didn't like that question. And I remember coming home once during the holidays, and I had this like 16, 17-year-old high school kid. He came to and knocked on my parents' house, knocked on the door. I opened the door, and he was raising money for like something, selling cookies or something, raising money. And he just asked me like, "What do you do?" I was like, "I'm a student. We're at Berkeley. You play sport or what?" And I was like, "I'm done with you." I called my mom to come talk to him. I just got tired of it. So that happened, and what was interesting about it is one of my floor mates. When I lived in the dorms at Berkeley, he was white and he was a hockey player. He was an actual athlete. Like we were the same everything.
Yeah.
And we would go out and party together and we'll meet people and they'll ask us, what do you guys do? I'm a student. And Berkeley, yes. They wouldn't ask him if he was an athlete, but they would ask me if I was an athlete 100% of the time. And he was actually an athlete.
He was actually there.
Yeah. So like I dealt with a lot of stuff there was this assumption that majority of us got into Berkeley on sports scholarships. And I got in on an academic scholarship. Yeah. My tuition was fully paid, but people don't automatically assume that. So that'd be one story.
And obviously those experiences, they play into one of the, like part of the reason why like you're doing what you do with Nextplay, and there are multiple experiences like that. Mm-hmm. All people of color go through it. So props to you for doing what you do. Mm-hmm. Kind of want to transition to post-college. So you graduate? What kind of jobs did you get into? What was post-grad looking like? Yeah, so
before I even talk about that, when I was a student, I did quite a few internships. Mm-hmm. In Norway, I did a recruiting internship as well, unpaid. And I had a tech internship.
Cool. Yeah, recruiting people.
There's this student organization called ISEC. It's the largest student organization in the world. They have chapters on literally thousands of campuses around the world. And I did a recruiting internship with them. And so I developed a little bit of recruiting experience. And then my last semester, so when I came back from Norway, I had one more year at Berkeley. And my last semester, I studied abroad again. I had that itch. Yeah, it was just a time in my life, got to travel around Europe. So I wanted more on my way out. I don't know. For some reason, I wasn't very optimistic about the real world. I had heard a lot of just horror stories of people leaving school and the real world. He's working all the time, and it's just not as interesting.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Before I leave, let me study abroad one more time. Studied abroad in England, and it was my last semester. So while I was there, that's when I went on a job search because I was coming back home. Well, I wanted to stay there, so I was looking for jobs there, and I saw how much they were paying. Yeah, they don't pay. The jobs, the salaries were shockingly low. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm coming back home. So I started looking for jobs in the U.S. And then that's when I got the message from
your recruiter.
My recruiter at LinkedIn. I remember his name. I would never forget his name. Dan Scanlon. Dan, if you're out there, you're out there, I got to give you another shout out. He reached out to me, and we had our first call via Skype.
Yeah.
I took the call. So at the time, I didn't realize companies were leveraging LinkedIn to find the talent they're looking for. I was still under the impression that if you're looking for a job, you got to go fill out job applications, companies review it and get back to you. And then I got this message, companies are going outbound now. They're being proactive in finding the talent that they want. And so when I got that message, I thought it was spam, thought it was too good to be true. Took the call went well, and he said, we're having a batch day of on-site interviews next week. We're bringing in a bunch of people to interview for this recruiting associate role. Leaving college, I didn't even know recruiting was a career, yet alone a lucrative career. Yeah. Recruiting is like the highest paying career in tech that a lot of people don't know about. There's recruiters here making engineering money. Yeah. So we can get into that a little bit later. But luckily, my flight back to the U.S. was scheduled that following week as well. So I made it back in time, came in for the batch day, interviewed, and ended up getting the job.
Damn.
That's how I landed at LinkedIn. So I didn't have to go through the grind of applying for a ton of jobs. In fact, one of my teammates who got hired for the same role applied for 1,000 jobs. And this was a job he ended up getting after getting rejected.
Not a bad job to get 1,000 times.
yeah, but still, I mean, think about the labor.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to apply for that many jobs because they were proactive on finding people with relevant backgrounds, and I got that message, and boom.
And it was recruiting as the RA program, right?
It was RA, yeah, the recruiting
was it a contract at first?
Contract. Yeah, so I was in a position where I had to decide between LinkedIn and another medical device company in LA. I went down to LA, and that job paid a lot higher than the recruiting associate role at LinkedIn. But the environment, I walked in there, it's an old school medical device company. It's a German company too, so no one looked like me. They had cubicles, bright lights, and I just I didn't feel like I belonged there. I would have been miserable in that environment. But the interview was going well, and there was a chance I was probably going to get it. And I came to LinkedIn, and it was a 6-month contract. What the hell is a contract? Yeah. I didn't even know about contracts. I was on a contract
here when I started too.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of us came in on contracts, right? Yeah. So I walked into LinkedIn. It was younger, and it's just more vibrant. The culture was dope. The perks. And I was like, this is where I want to be. So I took the risk and ended up converting to a full-time employee.
And then you had to learn, or you kind of did recruiting as an internship, so you brought those skills with you. But was it like a steep learning curve for you?
I did recruiting as an internship, but you know how it is when you intern. It's pretty high level. Yeah. It's pretty high level. So yeah, coming to LinkedIn, there's a lot I had to learn. I had to learn about the roles I was recruiting for. I came in as a sales recruiter, so I was recruiting salespeople, specifically customer success. And so I had to just learn as much as possible about that world. Learn how to use this tool. LinkedIn has a software called LinkedIn Recruiter. That's what companies use to find talent. Learn how to use that. And my experience at LinkedIn was interesting because at the time that I got here, which was 2014, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me. On my team, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me. I didn't see a lot of people who sounded like me. So I didn't feel comfortable taking my phone calls out on the floor. I would when you're still onboarding, ramping up, you can take calls in a conference room. So I would, even after that, I would still take my calls in a conference room.
Like, what's up with this guy?
Yeah, because I didn't sound like anyone, and I had a different communication style in general. Yeah. Like, I'm more casual. Yeah. I didn't want to sound all buttoned up and stiff. No, I want to connect with these candidates. I want to just have a conversation. And I didn't hear other people on my team having those types of conversations. And so I didn't feel comfortable at first. It took a while for me to get to a point where it's like, all right, I'm going to take my calls out on the floor. My style is my style. The way I sound is the way I sound. It is what it is. I'm not going to keep hiding the stuff, and it worked out eventually.
Given that you're a recruiter and you're on the phone with people interviewing for jobs at one of the best companies in the world, what advice would you give to somebody that's out there looking on the receiving end of it?
Ton of advice. There's a lot of misconceptions out there. The first one is, in 2019, if you're still out there filling out job applications, if that's your strategy to find jobs, that is a losing strategy. And I think maybe there's probably a lot of people, actually, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are not aware that it's all about relationships. You really do have to leverage that. Some people have heard it, but they don't understand how serious it is. Well, I can tell you, as a former recruiter, we are required to post jobs, but anyone can apply for a job. When I was recruiting enterprise sales reps, I had a baker at Safeway apply for one of my jobs. Yeah, I was reviewing his applications and I saw Baker. And so at that point, I'm like, all right, we're getting thousands of applications and there's a lot of noise in there.
There's only so many hours in the day.
Exactly. And so recruiters in tech anyways, they'll spend majority of their time on LinkedIn searching so they could proactively find the talent they're looking for. That's quality control. Or they'll take a look at referrals from other employees because that's high quality. So if you're out there filling out job applications, recruiters are not spending that much time reviewing job applications. So you need to tap into your network to see who you know that works at the companies you're interested in. If you don't know anyone, you need to leverage LinkedIn. I mean, I don't understand how you go about your job search without leveraging the LinkedIn platform.
Yeah.
It's literally a gold mine, and I don't work in LinkedIn anymore. But you got to leverage LinkedIn to find people at the organizations you're interested in. You got to reach out to them, and don't ask for that much time. You could even ask for 10 minutes of their time, 5 minutes. Hey, I'm interested in what you do. Would love to learn more. Hop on the phone, engage them. If they like you, you never know. They might be interested in referring you. I mean, at the very least, that's a new connection.
True.
That's someone you're adding to your network. It's all about your network. So the first piece of advice is stop filling out job applications. Start thinking about how you can get referrals, because when you get a referral, you're 20 times more likely to get hired. 20 times more likely to get hired. So why would you fill out a job application? And so you're better off spending time growing your network and getting referrals. That's the first piece of advice. I'll just stop there, actually.
Oh, that's good. That was really good. So you're a recruiter, you're recruiting associate, you get converted to full-time. And then how did you transition to your D&I role, diversity and inclusion role?
Yeah, so I did recruiting for a while, and I got tired of talking to candidates that come from the same background. Hiring managers, the way recruiting works, your hiring manager would tell you, hey, these are the skills I'm looking for. I want people that come from these types of schools, these types of companies. The requirements they give you a lot of times force recruiters to find talent in the same place. And a lot of those places that we're being asked to find talent are not necessarily the most diverse places. If you're only looking for talent from Ivy League schools are not the most diverse schools in the country.
Yeah.
If you're only looking for talent from the top tech companies are not the most diverse companies. So it's a vicious cycle.
Trickling effect, yeah.
So I got tired of talking to the same people. And obviously, like, I'm Black and I'm passionate about leveling the economic playing field. And so I started thinking about how I could open doors for, like, more people of color. And companies needed it. In order to know that, how do you know you're hiring the best talent if you haven't talked to the best of the best talent from all walks of life? You don't really know you're hiring the best talent. Yeah. You don't know. So it actually makes business sense to make sure you're being inclusive in who you're talking to and then let the best person shine. And so I came up with an idea. So because of that, I knew I wanted to transition into a role that will allow me to help LinkedIn diversify our pipeline to make sure we're hiring the best talent. And so I spoke to one of my mentors, like, hey, I'd love to be a diversity recruiter. He was like, that sounds great. What's stopping you from becoming a diversity recruiter? Like, well, I'm waiting for a role to open up at LinkedIn. Once that role opens, I'm going to interview for it. That's another piece of advice. Just because an open role does not exist does not mean you cannot create your own role. You can be proactive, talk to the right people, build relationships, tell them what you want to do, and they could potentially, like, create a role for you. So I told him, like, yeah, I'm waiting for a role to open. He's like, why are you waiting for a role to open? I was like, I mean, you're in recruiting, I'm in recruiting. You know how it is. You got to wait. Once the rec opens, you interview for it. He was like, no, every job I've had at LinkedIn, I created. And I thought about it, and his role at the time was a talent market strategist. And I was like, what the hell is a talent market strategist? On a recruiting team?
Yeah.
What is a talent market strategist? Is a role he created. So he helped me think about how to create a job description for this role that did not exist. And so I took the weekend, did a lot of thinking, came up with this job description. The role was called a diversity strategist. I came up with ideas on how we could find diverse talent, how we could engage diverse talent, how we could define success for the role, etc. Like, came up with a real job description. And he told me, yeah, just put an hour in your manager's calendar and sit down and share your ideas with them and see what happens. So I did that. By the end of the conversation, they were pretty impressed with the ideas I had and what that role could look like, the value it could add for the organization. And
that's one key thing, the value that it adds and how it ties back to the business need. It's not just creating a role that's going to be fun for you and good for your career. Yeah.
If you're going to create a role, it needs to solve a real business problem. At the time, I knew LinkedIn had challenges hiring diverse talent. Every tech company does. And so that's a huge problem and a very, very tough problem to solve. So I came up with ideas on how we could move the needle on hiring diverse talent. And so had that conversation, and they were open to it. Like, we're going to create this role for you.
What was your day-to-day going from recruiting associate to diversity strategist, like the whole 180, right?
Yeah, completely. It's a different role. So it's a different role. The previous role I was recruiting. In this role is more of a program management role. So my job is to think about how to empower recruiters with the tools that they need to make sure they're finding and engaging more diverse talent. So as soon as I started that job, I did a couple of different things. The first thing I did in that role, the head of recruiting at LinkedIn was like, hey, can you organize a diversity open house? He wanted to attract more Black and Latino recruiters to LinkedIn. If you want to diversify, you got to start with the recruiting team.
Exactly.
And so he gave me a pretty tight timeline to execute. I got 2 weeks to host an event. So I was like, all right, how about 3 weeks? He was like, all right, let's do it. And so the first thing I did was host this diversity open house event. And right then and there, I already started thinking about how do we make this more interesting. Yeah. And so I came up with this idea to why don't we have a live DJ, actually, just to make sure there's a vibe, so it feels good. And so I went to Ish. You were actually the first DJ.
I remember that.
Yeah, for the diversity open house. It was in Mountain View. Okay. Yeah, so I went to Ish, and I told Ish, hey, we're doing this event. Like, I know you're a DJ. Would you be down to DJ? And you didn't say yes right away. You're kind of on the fence. I basically had to beg out. I had to basically beg you to do it. Like, bro, we need this, low key. Yeah. And so Ish did it. The event went well, and he killed it. The vibe was dope. And while I was at that event is when I started thinking about okay, this is interesting. Still more corporate than what I want, but how do we take this to the next level? Mm-hmm. And then that's when I started thinking about okay, what if we did an open mic? So that was a segue.
What if we did an open mic like that? Kind of talk through what your process. Yeah, your mental process was like. It's not just an event with a DJ to an open mic.
Absolutely. So the one thing I didn't talk about in the beginning of this conversation was what exactly is the nature of a Nextplay event and why is it unique? And I'll get into that now. So while I was at that first event, we had a panel discussion, pretty long panel discussion, and our speakers were talking about how diversity is important to us. We care about diversity, inclusion, belonging. And I told myself, if this is a part of my job, I don't want to hear this over and over and over again. We got to create experiences. Mm-hmm. These bright lights that we have in here, we got to dim these lights. We got to create a vibe. The food that we have here, we need to make sure we're serving authentic food that comes from our community, local vendors. And while I was at that event, it kind of hit me. I got this thought, what if we did an open mic networking event? And basically what that means is it'll still be a networking event, but there'll be a portion that will be dedicated to live performances. Yeah. Why open mic? Because when I used to be in a band, we would test out new songs at open mic, community open mics. We'll go out there and play a new song. And that space is just a safe space. There's this shared experience, the way it brought everyone together. Mm-hmm. It was just amazing. And I figured if we can create that experience here at LinkedIn,
you'll win.
The attendees have never experienced that in the corporate world. And so that would be a competitive advantage because no one's doing that. They'll all want to work for us. Yeah. And so we decided to host our first open mic event for sales professionals. We went to our employees and told them, invite any Black or Latino salesperson in your network. We don't care what industry they come from. The other problem we're trying to solve is one of the reasons why tech struggles with diversity is a lot of hiring managers are not open to hiring talent from outside of the industry. They want to minimize hiring. Risk. They want to minimize risk. When you hire someone, you never know if that person is going to be good or not.
Yeah.
And so the best way to minimize risk is to hire people who have done that same job and they've come from similar companies. I could see why that is, but if we want to solve for diversity, there's not that many of us here. We are inevitably going to have to look outside of the industry in order to increase the numbers in the industry. But I knew that we can't just send profiles of like black and brown people outside of the industry. Hiring managers are going to think about how much time they're spending. They think it's high risk. So I was like, you know what? How could we get them in front of these people in a low pressure environment? Yeah. And so that was what that open mic did. And came up with the idea, told my manager about it. She was on board, told her manager about it. And she was like, I want to learn a little bit more about the open mic. And so socialized it with all of our black and brown employees. Everyone's like, that sounds amazing idea. When's it happening? So we did the first one. It was for sales. We told all of our hiring managers, hey, you know, we're having this mixer, this networking event. There's going to be some live performances. It's going to be music. It's going to be a nice vibe. Just come out. Just come network. They came out and we had, Ish was, so I knew in order to execute this event, we needed, Ish was on the events team at the time. We needed an event program manager that understands entertainment. Mm-hmm. Like we had a team, but I wanted someone that understood the entertainment side of things. And so Ish was actually a part of that project. So he and I partnered and we brought this event to life. And hiring managers came out and they had conversations with black and brown sales professionals that come from different industries, people they probably otherwise may not be open to talking to because they're not sure if they can sell software. The truth is, if you can sell, you can sell.
You can sell, yeah.
If you can get someone to give you $1 million for a product, I don't care what that product is, you can sell. You can learn whatever product you need to sell. And they were very impressed. They were blown away, like, wow, like these people are amazing.
High quality candidates, yeah.
High quality candidates. They come from quote unquote non-traditional backgrounds, aka industries we normally don't look at, but I want to talk to these people.
They got chops.
And so we ended up hiring 6 people from the first event.
And can you explain more about the magnitude of hiring 6 people from one event?
Yeah, so hiring 6 people from an event is a big deal. Hiring one, and again, this was not a traditional recruiting event. We had some recruiters there, but we had a lot of like people from the business, the hiring managers. We had a lot of black and brown employees there. And so it didn't feel like a recruiting event at all. It felt like a community building event. But the sell was belonging. We created an environment where attendees were telling us, I've been in tech for 10, 15 years. This is the first time I've ever truly felt like I belong in this space. You walk in, you see a bunch of people look like you, the lights dim, there's a DJ playing music that we actually listen to, not like corporate music. The food is like something your mom would cook. Like there's live performances where we could be authentic. People are singing, people are dancing, there's spoken word. I mean, people felt at home. They were telling us this is the first time I've ever truly felt this sense of belonging that every company talks about. Mm-hmm. Because my company is not doing it and no other company is doing it, I want to work for LinkedIn. These professionals we invited are amazing salespeople who are not looking for a job. And so they all ended up wanting to work for LinkedIn. They interviewed and we hired 6. Hiring one is very difficult.
Very difficult.
Especially at the senior level. We hired enterprise sales reps, like very, very experienced salespeople. And so this was a test to see how this would go. And we didn't just hire one, we hired 6.
Yeah, it went phenomenal.
Yeah. And so at that point, everyone was like, wow, what the hell just happened here?
Yeah.
The net promoter score was, what was it, 97?
That was like 97, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the highest
97.
we've ever gotten.
Exactly, which a net promoter score essentially means you do an anonymous survey after the event on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this event to a friend?
Yeah.
Recruiting events don't have high, we call them NPS scores. They're usually pretty low. It's a recruiting event. It can only be so amazing. But we had almost a perfect net promoter score, and it was a recruiting event.
I think one of the key learnings from that entire experience is like you had an idea, you had a hunch, you knew it was going to work. It was just about socializing it with the right people, getting buy-in, developing the plan, and just executing, right? Mm-hmm. Like you had it in your mind, like, oh, this is going to work. Like something hit you when you were at the first event that you did.
We should talk about getting buy-in. Yeah. Because I learned a lot from that process. Yeah. And when I told the story, it made it sound like it just got approved right away. No, that's not an easy thing for companies to approve because it's a cultural event. Their brand is on the line. It can go off the rails. Mm-hmm. You're talking about performances. People can get up there and say anything. So I'll talk about that process because I think there's a lot that I learned and there's a lot that people can learn from that. So came up with the idea and started socializing it with other black and brown employees. They were on board. It wasn't difficult to get them bought in. This is our culture. This is what we do. So they thought it'd be a good idea to bring it in. All right, cool. Now it's time to get my manager bought in. Told my manager about it. She was bought in. She's she's Latinx. She comes from the community, so she got it right away. So I had to convince our senior director about it. I had a conversation with her about it, and she had a few questions. She's like, open mic? Tell me more. Like, what's an open mic? Told her about it. How would we hire people from this? Like, we don't want to just host a party. So how do you convert this into like recruiting outcomes? And so she didn't say no, but she didn't say yes. And so right then and there was the first challenge. How do I get senior leadership bought into this idea? Mm-hmm. So she said, let's keep talking about it. I had a couple options here. I could either keep trying to explain why this is a good idea and why it's going to work, or so you can either go up to get approval, or you can go horizontally, and you can get all of your peers bought in. If all of your peers are bought in and you guys all come together like, this is an amazing idea, we need to do this, senior leadership is not going to tell everyone, especially everyone from our community, they're not going to tell all of us no. Yeah. So I decided to let her just continue thinking about it, and I went to our Black and Latino employee resource groups and socialized it broadly. Literally told every single person I encountered about this idea. And after a while, you had just everyone super excited about it and just wondering, when is it happening? At some point, the senior director, she decided to do her mini roadshow. So she started socializing the concept with other people internally. And every single person she talked to, I had already talked to. I touched them all before she got there. Yeah. And basically everyone told her, yeah, Lesley told us about this. It's amazing. Like, when is it happening? We are excited. We're ready for it. And so at that point she realized, like, wow, there's something here. And I don't quite get it just yet. But if everyone, especially people who come from that community, if they see the value, then why would we not do it? Mm-hmm. And so that's what it took for me to get that approved. It did not happen overnight. It was a process. But the key learning here is you don't always have to get approval from the top. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you get a critical mass of people horizontally at your level, like, you could then go to your leadership and they'll think differently about it.
Yeah. Just because you have a good idea doesn't mean it's going to happen. Like, you need to get buy-in from other people and let them know, like, let them understand mm-hmm. and see the value of it through their lens. But mm-hmm. you're communicating that through storytelling. And
the other thing is, if you come up with an idea that's innovative, like that was an innovative idea at the time, you do not want to execute unless you have the proper resources to execute. Because if you try to do it by yourself and it's a flop, that idea is done forever. Yeah. So I actually didn't move on that idea for months. And after a while, they kept hounding me like, you've been talking about this for a long time. Mm-hmm. When is it happening? I was trying to get the resource, and I was trying to get the right resource. That's where, like, you came in handy, because you understood what we needed to do to execute the right way. Yeah. It could not just be any event program manager. It had to be someone that understands how to bring the entertainment component together. Yeah. And so, yeah, so that happened. We did it in San Francisco, did it in Chicago, did it in New York. It was a success, hired people everywhere. We got a lot of press from it. I got interviewed by Inc. magazine, KQED, NPR radio, a couple of publications. We had a case study done on it by I4CP. And at that point is when I decided that I was going to leave and create an entire business around it. Yeah.
Can you talk through that and what went through your mind in terms of, like, you're obviously finding success at the company doing it, and you had bigger aspirations for it. So is that what kind of drove you to branch off and do it?
Yeah, so if you asked me when we hosted that first open mic event, if you told me I'd be where I am today, I'd tell you, no way. Yeah, I didn't see all this coming. It kind of happened organically. Yeah. And so while we were doing those open mic events, it was a mixture of companies reaching out to me on LinkedIn saying, hey, because I wrote a blog post about the open mic, explaining the concept. And companies were like, this is the most innovative. People were reaching out to me saying, I've been in HR for 20 years. This is by far the most innovative thing we've seen in recruiting. We would love to be a part of this. People were reaching out from major tech companies. Yeah. How can we be a part of this? And after getting a few of these, I was like, this is a recruiting event for LinkedIn. Like, how could you be a part of this? Like, this is our competitive advantage. I don't know that you can be a part of it, but you can't ignore demand. Yeah. I saw that demand was there, and I asked them, would you pay for this? And they said, absolutely. I was like, okay, I got a business. On the other side, people in the community, so the attendees at these events, it became a thing. People were looking forward to LinkedIn open mics, and they started telling me, hey, could you host these events for other companies too? We love the fact that you're able to build community and connect us with LinkedIn. We learn more about the culture, opportunities, and we get hired. We would love to be able to leverage this platform to connect with other companies in the industry as well. And so I had validation on both sides, and at that point, it was bigger than me. It was bigger than me. I mean, I figured this is a platform that could solve a lot of diversity recruiting challenges.
Not just for one company.
Not just for one company. First of all, the most important thing is building community. It's very lonely being a Black or Latino professional in tech. You don't see a lot of people look like you. Definitely not in the same role, and definitely not at senior levels.
Yep.
And so the community aspect is very valuable. You get to just mix and mingle, have a good time, be productive too at the same time with like-minded people. And also, the other problem that we were going to solve was giving people direct access to like recruiters at other companies, as well as people in a business who are doing a job. Yeah. Again, I mentioned we don't want people applying for jobs here. We want you to connect with the right people directly. Yeah. So that was the other problem that we were going to solve. And so that's why I created Nextplay.
So you created Nextplay, then what?
Yeah, so we launched in December 2017. And
it's been a year and a half.
It's been a year and a half, yeah. So initially, to be honest, I was thinking in 2018, I'll probably do 4 events. Initially, it was an engineering-only community. And so we did the first event. That went well. We had 5 companies sponsor it. So we had Lyft, Stripe, Slack, LinkedIn, and Twilio. They sponsored the first event. Did the second event during Black History Month. And
this is 2018, right?
2018, yeah. So we captured content and we did a 3-minute video where I narrated behind it. And that video kind of took off. It got shared broadly on LinkedIn, and a lot of tech companies watched it and they started reaching out to partner. And at that point, then we did Twitter. We did an event at Twitter right after that. And before you realize it, we did 10 events that first year. Thought I was going to do 4. And within that same year, we ended up hosting the vice president of Nigeria, like the vice president of Nigeria. So I didn't anticipate that happening. Yeah. He made his first trip to Silicon Valley to talk about economic opportunity in Africa. There's a lot of startups that need money, and investors here can make a ton of money because a lot of opportunity there. And also, companies here need to look to Africa as a source of talent. There's a lot of talent there that they can hire. And he wanted to speak to a community of African and just Black professionals in tech in Silicon Valley, and Nextplay was that community. So he hosted that event at LinkedIn. He had a conversation with LinkedIn's co-founder, Alan Blue. That was an amazing experience. And so, we did events in the Bay Area, did it in DC. Facebook came around. We did an event with Facebook in New York. And before I realized it, the community quickly grew from 0 to, we were in the thousands. Quick. As I mentioned, initially it was engineering only, but you can go on the website and join the community, nextplayevents.com, by the way. And we got a ton of people joining the community. It just kind of went, it blew up. Yeah. These are real humans. These are real, so it just kind of blew up. We had a ton of people RSVPing for our events. And so at that point, I had to open it up to other business units.
You made it seem like, that was an amazing overview, by the way, but you made it seem that it was easy. How did you do it? Launching a company is not easy. Launching a company in the space that you're working with, you're working events, things go wrong. And just creating a company in general, things go wrong. What was that process like? Yeah,
so I learned, I had never really launched a real company before. So I learned a lot in the process. I incorporated the company while I was still at LinkedIn. I kept the 2 separate. By the way, if you have a job and you have a side hustle, make sure you keep the 2 separate. You don't want any legal challenges. And so I launched the company, got the trademark for the name, for the logo. These things all cost money, by the way. Wow. I was spending money. Luckily, I had equity. I had stocks at LinkedIn, given I had worked here for about 4 years. And so I cashed out all my stocks and just went all in on Nextplay. Knowing, if I knew what I know now, I probably would have hesitated a little bit to just go all in. But then sometimes ignorance is bliss. I didn't know how hard it was going to be. And I just believed in the vision so much. And by the way, the vision is to close the network gap for every professional of color. So everyone has goals, everyone has dreams, ambitions. You are going to need the right network in order to realize your vision, in order to achieve all those goals. So here in the US, we are literally way behind, given our history, where we're talking about Black people in America, we're hundreds of years behind as far as our network is concerned. Yeah. So we're already behind. So by doing these events, we want to help people meet the right people, and we facilitate introductions outside of events too. So the vision is to close the network gap for every single Black and Latino professional out there. Whatever you want to do, we want to make sure that you can get connected to the right person that can help you do that. And we facilitate those introductions at events and outside of events. And yeah, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have just went all in, because it was challenging. I had to spend a lot of money,
a lot of time.
I
remember you starting it here, and you're like, "Yo, man, how do you do it? Like, your schedule is crazy."
Yeah,
and I was like, "You'll figure it out." They quickly figured that out.
I had my 9 to 5 at LinkedIn. I'll go to work, come back, and I had my 6 to 2. I work 8 hours LinkedIn, come home, I work till 2 a.m. I had to develop new skill sets. If you're going to start if you're really good at one thing and you want to start a company, don't think the only skill set you're going to need is that particular skill set that you're really good at. You're going to have to learn different things, because a company is dynamic.
Yeah.
You're dealing with everything. So I needed a website, didn't have the money to pay someone and didn't want to wait. I just wanted to move as quickly as possible. So I had to learn how to build an actual website. And I was not technical. So I built the website. It took a lot longer than I expected. It was such an experience. But anyways, we got the company off the ground. And then I did it by myself for the first 8 months. But after a while, the demand kept growing and kept growing. Initially, I was just like a solo event planner, and I was making pretty good money just doing it by myself. But the demand got crazy. I needed an event manager. I needed a creative director. There's a lot that I needed. So I had to hire people. Luckily, I did not take out a salary my first 8 months.
You didn't pay yourself?
Didn't pay myself a dime my first 8 months. I was just grinding in the trenches, just saving up money. Didn't even know why I was saving up the money, but I was just saving up money.
In case.
Yeah, just in case. And then come August, the demand was out of control. And at some point, you're going to have to hire people. Otherwise, you burn out. You cannot. It's called a company for a reason.
Did you burn out?
You need company. So I had to hire the first employee in August. Luckily, I had saved up money to be able to make him an offer. It's one of my closest friends. He's a creative director.
During that time, do you feel like you burnt out? During those 8 months? You never hit a wall where you're just like, gee.
No. If I didn't bring Kwesi on board in August, I would have burned out for sure.
Really?
But no, I mean, I didn't. I've burned out since then. Yeah, since then, because now it's intense. I mean, there's 5 of us now, and we're doing events around the world, and we're introducing new offerings. It's a lot now. Like, there's been moments where like I just hit a wall. I just got to shut it down. Yeah. But last year, there were times where I just almost ran out of money a couple of times. Like, cash flow is everything. The most important thing when you're running a business is money. Because if you don't have money, then there's no business. Yep. So you have to make sure you're managing your cash flow wisely. Companies don't pay you on time. They take, especially when you're new, and we're dealing with like massive companies. Yeah. They have net 60 policies, like net 30s, meaning from the moment they sign the contract, they'll pay you 30 days later or 60 days later. And when you're a startup and you don't have any investors, you don't have a ton of money, the difference between waiting to be paid for 30 days and 60 days, you could run out of money. Yeah. And go out of business. So I had to figure out, like, okay, how do I manage this cash flow situation? So I require companies to pay me up front now. Once I had a little bit more leverage, like, we cannot start doing anything until I have my money. Yeah.
Do you have a lowest moment? It doesn't have to be with Nextplay. It could be with anything else. But is there something that stands out in your mind as, like, lowest moment and maybe how you overcame it?
In life?
Yeah, it could be life. It doesn't have to be with, like, professional.
My lowest moment and how I overcame it. Let me see.
And the reason why I bring up the question is because I feel like entrepreneurship, and again, it doesn't have to be with like you being an entrepreneur, but a lot of this, what we see on social media and what we hear about is like the good. Entrepreneurship is amazing. I am my own boss. I do my own schedule. I have fun. But people don't highlight like the lows, and like the lows are what I'm learning. I'm not a full-time entrepreneur, but what I'm learning from hearing people's stories is like the lows are really low, and like it takes a lot of perseverance to like overcome them, and then still believe in yourself in order to continue like going.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Nextplay is concerned, the lows for me would be moments where like I'm literally running out of money. Like that's just scary. Yeah, I mean, business has ups and downs. Money doesn't come in all the time, but money goes out all the time. Yeah. You have expenses. And so when you hit a period where it looks like, damn, this could be it kind of thing, that's not a good feeling. For me, Nextplay is a mission-driven company. And so like I really, really believe in a mission. There's nothing that's going to stop me from making sure that this vision comes to life. This is bigger than me. So for me, like I love what I'm doing. I'm not going to lie. I love what I'm doing.
I see it in your face too. You're excited.
Yeah. This stuff is exciting. I mean, it's rewarding. We had a ton of people get hired in the last year and a half. People now have community they didn't have. So it's a lot of good stuff happening. The lows will be business things. I mean, last year when I initially started talking to companies, it was clear a lot of companies didn't understand the importance of what we're doing. And it was kind of, I can see how people would give up. Like, these companies really don't care. They don't get it. They say they care about diversity, but they don't want to put their money where their mouth is. And you could get to a point where you just become hopeless. You just lose hope and you give up altogether. So I've definitely had moments where it's like, I mean, this is kind of it's uphill, just
uphill battle.
Explaining the importance of this and getting companies to see that not only is it important, but it works. It will help you. So it's been that. Yeah, so the lows for me would be just having to face the fact that not every company really cares about this stuff.
Yeah. Can you provide more clarity and really break down what it means to like have Nextplay events and to host an event? Like, you did a really good job of explaining the open mic and the event that you hosted here at LinkedIn, but now we're talking about your company.
Yeah.
What is a Nextplay event? How does it make it? How are those events different than other types of events?
Absolutely. So we are a recruiting company. Now, our events don't feel like recruiting events, but we are a recruiting company. So let's break down the Nextplay event completely. We have multiple companies approach us. Let's talk about engineering, because engineering is our bread and butter. That's the biggest pain point for tech companies. They either can't find enough Black and Latinx engineers. Some companies can find them, but they have a hard time engaging them. They send messages, their response rates are really low. And so they come to Nextplay because we have this engaged community of 1,200 Black and Latinx engineers. I'm saying 1,200 now, like it's growing like crazy. Yeah. And so when they come to us, they tell us, hey, we're having a hard time finding and engaging. And so they'll ask us how they can participate in the Nextplay event. And we have a calendar of events. We have what we call Nextplay Spotlights. Those are small events, about 100 attendees on average. Mm-hmm. And then we have our annual Nextplay Summer Vibes event. It's an outdoors event. I'll start with the Spotlight event. If we do a senior engineering spotlight, you show up, there's probably 4 or 5 companies who are there. And it's pretty similar to open mic, but there's a couple of things that are different. So I can walk people through the structure of the event. So you show up, the first hour is networking. Companies are networking with attendees are networking with each other, building community. The lights are dim. We have a live DJ that kind of just curates that vibe. There's a visual artist that does a live painting. When we hosted the vice president of Nigeria, he did a live portrait of the vice president, and we gave it to him. He took it back home. There's authentic food, as I mentioned before. And then we kick off the event. We have some talks. Who have CEOs of companies sometimes. So when we hosted the engineering event at Slack, we had Stuart Butterfield, Slack CEO, speak. Mm-hmm. And then we go into live performances. And now our live performances are mostly dance. So we'll have Afrobeats dancers, hip-hop dancers, we'll have salsa, bachata dancers. It's exciting, and it just gets everyone on the same page.
This is a recruiting event.
Yeah, keep in mind it's a recruiting event. We go from networking to a CEO speaking to live dance performances. And then after that, the remaining hour and a half is more networking, more community building. And some people will continue networking in certain areas of the event. People would just like vibe out to the music, mm-hmm. and like people would just like kind of vibing, kind of dancing a little bit, but still having conversations. So it's just a casual environment where anyone feels comfortable approaching anyone. Everyone's approachable. Walls are down, and you can make the connections that you need to make. That's the Nextplay Spotlight event. Summer Vibes event is our largest event. It's not just engineering, it's every business unit. Engineering, marketing, finance, HR, legal, what have you. Mm-hmm. We invite all 6,000 people in the community. It's usually outdoors, and it's in Oakland. And it's essentially a tech networking festival. It's huge. We just had it in June this year. It's the second annual Summer Vibes. And there's a section for all the companies who are sponsoring. We have a ton of companies at Summer Vibes. It's huge. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of options. You have direct access. There's a main stage. We still have some speakers, and we have live performances, dance performances. And when I say dancers, we're not talking about amateurs. We're talking about professional dancers, like the best of the best. In fact, we fly in a lot of the dancers. Our dancers have danced for people like not just dance, but choreographed for people like Beyonce, all the big Afrobeats artists, the big hip hop artists, Chris Brown, you name it. These are the best of the best in the world. And this is all free. We don't charge for Nextplay Events. Yeah, it's free entertainment, free community building, free access to career opportunities. So Summer Vibes is like what a spotlight is, outdoors at scale. Summer Vibes, we have community vendors as well selling culturally relevant products. So like I'm wearing this African necklace right now. You could African chain, you could buy stuff like this or just any culturally relevant product. They're out there selling stuff. So it's culture on steroids.
Yeah, everywhere you look, even the drinks, the food.
Everywhere you look. Oh, yeah, food trucks out there. It's nice and warm out there. And we had over 1,000 people show up this year. And we're expecting 2,000 people next year.
Yeah, I was there. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you met Snapchat.
And I actually met I didn't say that. And my first day at Snapchat is on Monday.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that really quick. So,
about the experience at Summer Vibes?
Yeah, so the experience at Summer Vibes, I've been following, like Lesley said, I've been following Nextplay Events since the ideation, since the creation of it. So to see Lesley's idea, like I remember sitting down with you, I think it was in my apartment or your apartment, talking about like, you gave me the whole spiel of this idea of this Summer Vibes event, this outdoor festival. And I was just like, wow, this sounds amazing. When are you going to have this so I can go already? And to go from like that point over a year ago to like recently to go check out the event actually happen was unreal for me as an attendee. But yeah, like you show up and there's music playing. There's everything from like Latin music, Afrobeat, hip hop, a live DJ playing, performers, guest speakers, like lightning talks. You go get food and there's like I think it was West African food that I had, fire. The drinks were like cultural drinks too. And then like you had vendors out in one of the sides, and just it did not feel like a traditional recruiting event. And for those of you who haven't been to a recruiting event, maybe you're a student, think of like a traditional recruiting event, like an open house or like a
career fair.
A career fair. There you go. That's what I was trying to think of. Where it's super stiff. You're kind of on edge a little bit. You feel like you're being judged a little bit. This literally felt like I was with my people, having a good time, but also a second layer on top of that of having a good time was like the theme of opportunity. Like I could potentially get a job out of this. I could meet my next employer. I could meet somebody that even if I'm not trying to work for them, we might be working together in a different capacity. So, and fast forward to now, I interviewed for Snapchat, and I start on Monday doing employer brand and diversity programs. So I'll be helping out the space and helping more people of color and just people from all different walks of life get into tech. So thank you, Les. Appreciate it, man.
I'm glad you had a good experience. We need that space.
This is like full circle from the very beginning.
Exactly.
Closing it out here. It's dope.
I mean, the great thing is, like, my friends are finding jobs through Nextplay. Like, the moment that people in my network that I know are leveraging this platform to find their dream job or just amazing opportunities, I mean, that feels great. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. I think
one thing I wanted to mention real quick. So the difference between Nextplay Events and other events, the dynamic is different. With Nextplay Events, companies step into our space. So if a company decides
that's a really good point
if a company decides to partner with Nextplay, it's a statement because you know the tables are turned. They're stepping into our space. They're stepping into the culture. They're playing by our rules. Instead of vice versa, which is what typically happens when you go to a career fair. It's really intimidating. People don't feel comfortable. They come into our space knowing we're going to be ourselves, we're going to be authentic, and it is okay to practice our culture the way we do outside of a professional setting. So that's one thing that's really different.
I love that. And I kind of wanted to break down how it is that you manage Nextplay. So if you can talk really quickly to, it can be like your day-to-day or week over week. How do you manage your time and how do you make sure that shit gets done, because events are not easy to plan?
Now I'm finally in a position where I'm no longer in the weeds, and I'll talk about what that means. I can focus on actually running the business now. I can focus on business strategy. How do I grow the company? What are the biggest challenges we're having? And my job is to figure out how to solve that. Initially, I was in the weeds, meaning I was running the events myself. I was I was event manager,
social media manager,
yeah, social media manager. I was doing sales. So my job was, I would reach out to a ton of companies to get them to sponsor. I was doing stuff on the creative side, updating the website. Literally doing everything by myself, and that is really, really difficult. And then now that I've hired people, and they've been on board enough where they're ramped up, where they can handle some of these things. Like Lisa just joined the team like 3 or 4 months ago, and she's now leading partnerships. So I'm letting her run with that. Her job is to talk to as many companies as possible, tell them what we do, get them to work with us, bring in the money, essentially. She's doing that. We have Brian on the team. Brian leads all programs for Nextplay, so he literally drives all program management, basically all event management. He manages all of that. And then we have Kwesi, who is a creative director. So any content you've ever seen from Nextplay, all of our marketing, he creates the videos. He does original music production. He helps with our just marketing. So now I get to focus. I can take a step back, look at the bigger picture. What do we want to be in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? What would it take to get there? So my job is now actually focusing on business strategy. Well, how do we make sure we've got enough money to do things we want to do? How do I make sure I'm giving the team the tools they need to operate at a higher level? So that feels great. How do I talk to customers to understand how are things working for them? What's working, what's not working? If things that are not working, how do we optimize? How do we help them solve those problems? So I'm focusing on higher level strategic aspects.
Not trying to do everything yourself because you kill yourself trying to do that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I take my time really seriously right now. I schedule everything on my calendar, and I have to prioritize because I can't spend time on things that are not that important. Yeah.
Aside from work, do you have anything else that you use to balance out or kind of unplug?
I'm a keyboardist, so I'll hop my keyboard and I'll just jam out. I'll learn some covers. Right now, I want to do some Afrobeats covers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm learning some Afrobeat songs, and I'll just post them on my Instagram.
Send them my way too. I need the tracks.
Yeah, I got you. So I do that, and I like socializing. I'll just hang out with my friends.
Not take yourself too seriously and try to work all the time.
I like running, so I'll go for a run around Oakland, the lake, etc. I consume a lot of content on YouTube. Yeah.
Nice. The next portion is going to be rapid fire. Then I'll let you kind of wrap up the event or wrap up the podcast with your goals and all that for Nextplay. But we'll kick off the rapid fire with what's your biggest learning from starting Nextplay?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, when it costs money to run a business, they're saving. A lot of times people save money to leave your company and run a business. They're saving money to cover their personal expenses for a 6-month period or a year period. That's separate from business expenses. There's going to be business expenses that you did not anticipate. So you need to save a lot of money. It's really expensive. Everything costs money. So that was one thing I didn't anticipate. I ran out of money that I saved pretty quickly. I thought I was good for I thought I was good for a year. I was like, oh shit. So there's that. 2, you need a team. You will burn out, and some people may not want to give up equity or some ownership in your business to bring people on board. But if you don't have the money to pay people market value in the beginning, you're going to have to give up equity. It's okay. It's better to own 30% of a $1 billion company than to own 90% of nothing. So you're going to have to give up. If you want to bring people in early, it's okay to give up a piece of your company.
What motivates you to do what you do?
The mission, the impact. Nextplay, this platform is needed.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we're way behind as far as closing that network gap is concerned. So it's a big vision. It's going to take a long time to get there, but we need platforms like Nextplay. Yeah. So just every hire makes a difference. Every new person who makes a new connection at Nextplay, and now that makes them that much closer to achieving their goals, that makes a difference. Yeah.
So that's what motivates you. That's what keeps you going every day. Do you have a upcoming goal that you have for Nextplay, or something that you haven't really shared about too much?
I do, and this is the first time that we're going to make this announcement. So our tagline is #They Say We Don't Exist. One of the things that we want to do is change the narrative around the pipeline issue. So there's this narrative out there that there's a pipeline issue when we talk about Black and Latino talent. There's not enough talent within the Black and Latino community. That's not true. and we're changing our narrative right now. And so next year, we're going to go on tour, nationally and internationally. The tour is going to be called #They Say We Don't Exist Tour. And what we want to do is hit the road, go to different markets around the country. We're going to host events there, and we're also going to go to markets where things are happening, like South by Southwest, Black Tech Week in Miami, etc. And we want to show the world physically that we are out here, we exist. There's a lot of talent in this community, and there's no excuse about this pipeline issue. And we're going to do that for a whole year. So we'll start off in Ghana. We're going to go to London. We're going to go to Texas. We're going to Miami. We're going to New York. We're going to Atlanta. We're going to Seattle. We're going to all these different markets to show people that we are actually out here.
Damn.
Yeah, we're going on a tour. They Say We Don't Exist tour.
So look out for that.
Look out for that. The call to action is to pull up. If we're coming to a market near you, call to action is to pull up and let's show the world that we do exist. And what we're trying to do is create a documentary out of this, and who knows what.
Damn, I literally got the chills just hearing that. That's crazy. Come such a long way, man.
Yeah.
This is nuts.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was a perfect way to wrap up the podcast. Did you have anything else that you want to share to our listeners out there before you give your social tags and everything?
Yeah, so if you're listening to this, we would love for you to join the Nextplay community. You could join at nextplayevents.com. Go to join, you put in your information, and you get invitations to events, and you'll be in the know. And yeah, look out for They Say We Don't Exist tour next year. If we come to a city near you, we would love for you to join us and show the world that we are actually out here. We need to change this narrative. Mm-hmm. And let us know how we can help.
Yeah.
We have one hell of a platform. We have, the 1,200 engineers work at 600 unique tech companies. We have access to a lot of companies, so we can help connect you with opportunities. Yeah, let us know how we can leverage our platform to make an impact, a positive impact.
And where can people find you?
You can find me I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on everything, really. Instagram, Facebook, Lesley Toche. On Instagram, Lesley, last name Toche. So at Lesley Toche. LinkedIn, first and last name, Lesley Toche. Facebook, same thing. And the Nextplay, we're on a lot of different social media channels. Yeah. Nextplay Events is our social media handle.
Cool.
And you can follow the movement.
There you go, man. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been crazy to see you grow. Like over the past couple of years. This is literally like full circle from back in the days when you were in recruiting, back when we were at the LinkedIn office in Montgomery, up till now. It's amazing to see how far we both come. So props to you, man. Keep it up, and I'll be supporting.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's crazy just how things develop
over time,
evolve. And so I'm excited for you too. This podcast is great. Excited for your new chapter at Snap. And man, let's keep it going.
Yep, that's a wrap.